Hello and welcome to the first episode of The Backcast. Today we're going to be looking at the history and the origin of The Dark Knight. Right.
Intro.
Right.
Introduce yourself.
Yes. Right. I'm Samuel Wood. I'm here with Kyle Pikett and Daniel Taylor from Star Trek. How are you both doing?
Still breathing.
Doing fine.
Other than these bloody audio mics.
Yeah.
Anyway, right, we're going to be talking about Batman. Right. Batman is a popular icon today. He's probably probably one of the most popular superheroes of all time, let alone one of the most popular icons of all time. But how did that come to be? And what are the best pieces of media from the Batman mythos? The aim of this podcast is to find this out, and today we're going to be looking at the origin on how The Dark Knight started. Started in 1939 in Detective Comics issue 27 by Bob Kane and Bill Finger.
So, Detective Comics number 27 was published in March 30th, 1939, with a cover date of May 1939. And before its creation, Bob Kane wanted to make money like the Superman creators could. They were making basically bank on the Superman comics, and Bob Kane wanted that kind of cash. So he went to Vin Sullivan, and Vin Sullivan said, well, if you can make a hero, do it. And that was in 1933. A sketch from Kane in 1930, well, he claims it's from 1934, of the original designs and sketches for Batman with the actual kind of ears and the cape and all that was shown. He showed it off, and the comic historians sort of went, nah, that looks like it postdates the 1939 stuff. And the original design was shown. There's a comic book historian, Alan Schumer, who created the original design, recreated it based on interviews that Bob Kane and Bill Finger have had, that show a mask like the comic book villain the Phantom, although it has the comic book hero the Phantom that has the pupils instead. And Bob Kane showed that to Bill Finger, and he went, well, you can see his pupils. If you want it, don't sew it so we can't see his pupils. The next one was bright red,
Blonde hair.
It looked
Black
it,
matte.
it was pretty much Flash Gordon. It was the idea of that kind of.
It was roughly around the same time as well, wasn't it? Yeah.
Well,
the 40s.
in the Detective number 27, the actual cover, the art is swiped from Flash Gordon by Alex Raymond.
Mm.
And Bob Kane was known for swiping his artwork.
Look at the Joker, for example, but we'll get to him in a minute.
Yeah. And the cowl was was Bill Finger's idea. The cape, originally it had these long bat wings that looked cumbersome. And
Yeah, because it was a reference to the Leonardo da Vinci invention, wasn't it?
yeah,
But
he
a bit
said
too
that
literal.
your bird's wings will have nothing more. Your bird shall have.
Sense of real.
Yeah, your bird will have no wings like a
Like a
nothing
bat.
more like a bat. Something like that. I had it written down and now it's gone. But but Bill Finger claims, well, no, those capes look very cumbersome. The wings look very cumbersome. Give him a cape. That'll be light. It'll do what you want. Make it bat symbol. Make it like a bat's wing, but make it more. It'll be a lot more fluid.
Imposing.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more fluid.
Intimidating. I think that's
The name Bill Finger came up with, Bruce Wayne, from Robert the Bruce and Mad Anthony Wayne. And that's basically the entire, him coming from there all the way to issue 27.
how he became the Batman,
Yeah.
basically.
Certain inspirations from it I claim to be the Black Bat from 1939, and
The Man Who Laughs, I know that was one.
that's for the Joker.
Yeah, but it's still...
And in 1930 there was something called Bat Whispers, which was about a serial killer dressed as a bat.
Yeah, it's as well, that film is where we get the iconic shot of Batman climbing up a rope, which looks very similar to the character that came after it.
Yeah. From my research, I also found that there's a man by the name of Frank Foster, who he claimed that he came up with Batman.
A lot of people claim
Yeah.
up they came up with Batman. Even Stan Lee jokes that he came up with Batman.
He had his own sketches of in 1932 of Batwing, also additional names Nightwing.
That never came back.
And that was another thing that he was said to leave his artwork there so that potentially anybody could have seen it and gone, oh yeah, we'll do that instead. And his family continuing to claim that he came up with Batman.
Right. This is also a much different period compared to many others in the Dark Knight history, considering it was very grounded with how it presented itself. You know, there were very basic bad guys at first with Dr. Hugo Strange and his little mutant monster things.
His first villain was Dr. Death.
Yep.
In the first comic.
Yeah. It was very this was also a more open time, like back in the day, Batman would run around with guns before they put a no guns policy on there.
Yeah. From number 27 to about number 31, he kills at least one person in every issue.
Yeah, like I said, this was changed later for obvious reasons in order to be a lot more relatable. But back then, not many people cared. Let's be honest. This was a World War II time.
Yeah.
But eventually, this was meant to be a darker comic. You know, the original Vision was a darker superhero, basically.
Yeah, the opposite of
the
Superman.
opposite of Superman, who was already wrecking in the dough.
Yeah.
Right. And Batman was the counter, a realistic hero. However, considering it was a lot more darker than most, new characters were introduced in order to help younger readers get in, which led it to the making of Robin, Dick Grayson.
Yeah, in issue number 38.
Yeah. And to go along with side, he started getting a more colourful rogues gallery. The Joker.
1940.
Catwoman was introduced as a female antagonist.
In the actual same comic as the Joker.
Yeah. So who eventually came onto some of the first episodes of the animated series, come to think of it. But right.
For Robin, for 1938, they wanted, because it started to get a little bit stale. They thought that it was going to be a little bit stale. So Bill Finger claims that, well, if Sherlock has Watson, Batman needs somebody to talk to. He can't just be this dark villain all the time. He needs somebody to talk to, otherwise it just won't work. Jerry Robinson claims, well, I came up with the idea from Robin Hood by N.C. Wyeth, and that is how he gets the colourful name and the Robin and all the costume and all that. And originally, Bob Kane agreed to the idea of having this sidekick, but the publisher at the time, Leibowitz, was like, that's the idea of a kid fighting crime's a bit too risque for us. But when he first came out and sales basically doubled on that issue,
because the kids now have someone to relate to, basically. That's the whole mindset.
It's the same idea with what happened with Spider-Man.
Right. Shall we get on to the 50s or the 40s?
Well, we've still got to mention Joker's, where that came from.
Right.
So, for Joker, in April 25th, 1940, Batman issue 1 is when he came to be. Again, he, much like his comic book, where his origins are multiple choice, there's sort of another three ideas of where he came from as well. So Jerry Robinson claims, again, sort of like what Bill Finger did with Sherlock, Sherlock's got his ultimate villain in Moriarty, Batman needs his ultimate villain, and he saw a Joker card and went, okay, that's what we're doing for. And that's where the Joker came from in his mind. And you also see the Joker card in the actual comic. Bob Kane claimed that it was Conrad Veidt from The Man Who Laughs, a film starring a man who was horribly disfigured and basically forced to smile all the time.
The comic The Batman Who Laughs also takes inspiration from the name, obviously, and even takes the same front cover.
Even in it, it's like one of the origins where he was the guy who fell into the vat of acid and he was disfigured. Bill Finger claims that he got the idea from the Grinning Coney Island mascot, which was a huge sort of... It almost looks like Pee Wee Herman. That just smiling away, and it's so iconic, like a landmark. And yeah, Catwoman was quintessentially Bill Finger idea again. Bob Kane says that it came from Jean Harlow, and that's what he based it on. Yeah, So,
So
but-
that's the basis set
that's
of Batman.
that's the start of
That
the
was
issue, but-
that was the main thought. That was mainly what was going on in the 30s and the 40s with Batman.
with Bill Finger creating the Penguins, with Bob Kane going, well, there's the cool cigarettes. Riddler, Gotham City finally was named in 1940s in Detective Comics issue 48.
Even minor villains started coming up who
Yeah, the
seemed like jokes
Batcave.
came back eventually. Anyway,
The Batcave was finally shown off in 1942. In 1941, we had the first proper Batmobile, not that red sedan he was wearing.
that they used in the serials, in the 40 serials as well, didn't they?
Yeah, but in,
Well, you couldn't tell it was black
in
and
Batman number 5, he finally got the Batmobile.
Anyway, right. Anyway, this was a lot more of a peaceful time.
Yeah.
Until 1950s.
With Seduction of the Innocent.
Right, it was basically a book saying how it's ruining children's minds, basically corrupting them. You know, the basic outcry GTA has these days in the video game culture. You know, it claimed that 90% of children, were getting corrupted by comics.
Yeah,
And to quote Stan Lee,
basically.
90% of kids were also drinking milk at the time, so, you know, it doesn't really make a big difference.
This led into the creation of the Comics Code, which ultimately led into a more lighter kind of Batman, along with Robin as well.
Yeah, a lot. If you've ever seen the show Batman Brave and the Bold, it's a tribute to all this silliness. But back then, it was dropping sales hard. If you ever see some of those joke covers, chances are it is from the 50s with genie Batmans or rainbow Batmans. It was.
It did sort of pull, because Batman was an honorary member in the 40s of the Justice Society of America, but it sort of pulled him more into being a team player. And in 1952, there was a comic, because this story is so stupid I have to mention it. There's a comic called The Mightiest Team in the World in 1952.
I know which one you're on about, yeah.
Batman and Superman fighting against each other for the love of Lois Lane. And ultimately, Lois Lane ends up picking Robin.
Yeah, she chose.
That kind of shows the kind of level of
Stupidity and immaturity and the laziness of this era.
I mean, I would have liked...
Sales were completely dropping at this point. It was ridiculous.
I mean, I would have liked that episode of Brave and the Bold. I'm not gonna lie, that would have been...
It would have been a fun...
Perfect.
Yeah, but you gotta remember, right, for the time where this dark, grounded character, was being treated like this, it was atrocious.
Even the Joker was treated to... Instead of literally killing people...
He was a joker. He was a literal one.
He became a
He
literal
pulled
troll.
pranks.
He became a clown, an actual clown.
Well, thank God this wasn't in modern day, because the amount of internet trolls he would have pulled off.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Anyway, yeah, I know, it's a scary thought. Anyway, but this led into a little era. Post-1964 and pre-1964.
Oh.
This was the year that got Batman back on track.
Although, with that, just before 1964, Batgirl was introduced in 1961. The first Batgirl. Her and Batwoman were originally created as sort of a love analogue for Batman and Robin. So Batwoman would be for
Batman.
Batwoman would
Oh God, that would have been twisted.
Batwoman would have been for Batman, and Batgirl would have been for
I mean,
Robin.
obviously, poor teenage didn't see it that way.
Yeah, anyway, right. Past 1964, a new writer was brought on board.
And a new editor.
Yeah.
The editor, Julius Schwartz, he helped reinvent the 1960s. That came from it. A new Batmobile, a hotline to the police headquarters. Alfred being killed off, happened in the 1960s.
But was brought back.
Yeah. Aunt Harriet, Dick Grayson's aunt, obviously,
Anyway.
helped live.
Anyway.
And a lot of characters were retired, such as Batmite, Batwoman, Batgirl.
For the greater good.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez.
Right. But this is where the darker stories started coming in. You know, someone like Ra's al Ghul, the Demon Kings
That was
and
the
stuff.
70s. The 1960s with the campy TV show.
Yeah, but no, this was the start of the era of shifting to that. But yeah, there was the 1960s, which brought a new campiness with the famous Adam West TV show.
Which was inspired by the comics.
But yeah.
And Batgirl being reintroduced in 1967 as Barbara Gordon.
However, this helped lead into the comics development into this darker style. Right, because once the TV show was ended and all these kids had grown up, they could get into this, and while they were growing, the stories were maturing. This was the era where comic books stopped being for just kids.
Yep.
It was becoming an all-around market. And this is seen perfectly with the 70s. I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off.
It's fine. Because to add on to your point, in 1969 was when Dick Grayson left to go to college, and a lot of people brought up with Robin.
Yeah,
who'd
they
been
completely
left
related
go
to
off
that.
to college.
And watching Dick Grayson develop into
To
Nightwing
Yep.
was yeah.
And so in the 70s, Batman became a solo hero once again, and for the most part, his rogue galleries didn't really appear. He was pretty much solving crimes and it was going back to its roots.
Detective Comics.
Yeah.
So-
Until 1971.
That's what DC stands for.
No, but
Yeah,
What-
until 1971.
was it the 70s where Magpie was introduced? Wasn't that the 80s?
I'm not entirely sure.
I think it was the 80s. Right.
Mm.
Anyway, right. And moving on to the 70s, this is when
Ra's al Ghul appeared in
Yep.
1971.
Yep.
Jason. No, wait, no,
Jason Todd was.
he was in 1981.
Right. Moving lovely from a decently, every all-around comic reader can understand to the 80s. And this is when a little writer, not many people know him. His name's kind of called Frank Miller. Yeah, not many people know of him. But he kind of made a little story that caused a bit of an evolution in the Batman mythos. The Dark Knight Returns.
The first DC story to be collected into a book form, and it's been continuously printed ever since. And also in 1981, Jason Todd appeared.
The second Robin.
Yeah.
Right.
We also had, in the same year, in 1986, with Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller also worked on Batman number 404 to 407, which was collected into a book called Year One, and that reimagined his origins.
The Dark Knight Returns was a much more extreme version of Batman. Something that brought all the characters, Batman, Superman, the Joker, a new Robin, it brought them to their extreme.
An older, grizzled, more ruthless Batman who's trying to fight against a gang that is incredibly
Violent.
Yeah.
It reinvented Batman for a new generation, and everything since has taken inspiration from this story.
Yep.
Even if I think it's personally a bit overrated, there is no denying the impact it's had on comic culture in general.
Yeah. 2 years later, we had Killing Joke, which is an exploration into Batman and Joker's relationship, although it's more of a joke,
As a
Commissioner
joke,
Gordon story.
As well as crippling main characters such as Barbara Gordon.
Yep, we had the thing, and we also had Death in the Family,
Where the readers got to vote in if Jason Todd lived or died.
We all know that outcome though.
Yeah,
Yep.
and Jason Todd died in the explosion.
Yay!
Yes.
He got brought back. But
Yeah, this is comics, no one stays dead
Yep.
forever. Spoilers, Avengers Infinity War. Right. Oh, shut up. Right. I'm censoring that out. Anyway,
And 1 year later, in 1989, after spending a decade pitching a Batman movie to Hollywood studios after he acquired the rights to them, Michael Uslan finally found a director in the form of Tim Burton and finally got
The Nutter.
Batman.
1989.
as
One
it's
of my
called.
favourite films of all time, by the way, just pointing that out there.
And that blew up.
It was one of the most hyped up films of all time. Jack Nicholson was causing hype. The Michael Keaton controversy got more people in the cinema. People were nicking posters off the bus. It was great. I wish I lived in that time. I really do. It sounds like. But yeah, this was the film that finally got Batman back into the mainstream. People still look at it as a classic to this day. I look at it as a classic to this day. But these were the 80s specifically. This was the era that brought comics into the way that they were. Not just Batman. Everyone took inspiration from this.
Yep.
I am Marvel.
And
Right.
as a minor thing in the comics, Tim Drake became the third Robin in 1999.
Nightfall happened.
Nightfall, Batman returns in 92, and the animated series.
This was a very
Not 99.
well, yeah. Again, and things don't really evolve from there. Oh god. Right.
Keep
I'll
going.
fix that. Right. Nothing really evolves from here. It all stays the same. We get some fantastic stories from Batman. We get some fantastic reimaginings with Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, the Nolan trilogy. Also popularising characters, along with bringing tragic stars like Heath Ledger to an end, even though it wasn't the film's fault, but giving us a fantastic performance. And Tom Hardy's Bane. Right. It revolutionised and brought Batman to a new media. And now this is commonly accepted.
As one of the greatest.
Yeah. Zack Snyder's tried, but less said about that, the better. Right? But the comics from now on have all been, inspiring and massive because of this decade.
With the noughties also brought Final Crisis, with the death of Bruce Wayne, the apparent death of Bruce Wayne.
Well, before he came back again.
Yeah, and putting Dick Grayson as Batman. The only time that
Which was fantastic.
Yeah, the only time that really ever happened was in Nightfall.
Well, after Azrael, anyway.
And then in 2009 we had the beginning of what is the Arkhamverse of games, Arkham Asylum.
Which has spawned its own comic book series, its own little mini-series. It's
4 sequels.
Yeah, it's...
Well, three sequels and a prequel.
Yeah.
Say Origins.
Yeah.
2 sequels and a prequel. I know what I'm on about.
one of the most respected game franchises of all time.
Won't it be 2 prequels as Blackgate assists?
That doesn't count.
Sure, no one counts that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm jumping back to the 90s quickly. I'm sorry if that was a bit jumbled. But we also got the animated series, one of the most faithful adaptations of The Dark Knight to this day. Reinventing characters. Mr. Freeze has been changed for the better, and Harley Quinn was introduced, and they've become staple characters of the comic world.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze. What was Mr. Freeze's origin back then?
He was like a bloke He was a bloke who looked like Darth Vader. Oh wait, he was Darth Vader.
Because it was because
60s.
of A Heart of Ice from the animated series that he became a lot more interesting of a character,
And
it gave him motivation to actually do why he's doing what he's doing.
And all these little animated series that you've got on TV now, that is all thanks to Batman. All the superhero ones.
Yeah.
Batman inspired an entire little mini-series for the DC with the Justice League Unlimited, Batman Beyond, Superman, yeah.
In my opinion, the only other character that's ever had that much of an impact is Spider-Man. Honestly.
And it's the same reasons for Dick Grayson, if you think about it. But anyway, in conclusion, Batman has been a popular icon for many years, and he will continue to remain that. New 52 or Rebirth, pre-Golden Age, Silver Age, Bronze Age, right? There is no... Right, Batman will live on forever. You could even argue the bat symbol itself is just as iconic as a Christian cross in certain countries. Right. But we do ask ourselves one question. What is the best story? Well, that's what we're going to find out. Right. Over the next few episodes, we're going to be debating with a completely fair and totally not rigged scoring system. Right. And no bias will come in between. Promise. Right. Discussing certain elements of the character and which stories are truly the best Batman stories for different reasons. From Elseworld to movies, right? There is no limits. Right, I say that's a wrap up for the first episode.
The one last thing I want to add, just to show how big Batman is in 2012, a copy of Detective Comics issue number 27 sold for $1.07 million.
I wish I had that money.
Or £778,173.55.
It's over 9,000.
No, do not make that.
That's just to show the level of popularity that he has gained. That his very first issue is that expensive.
And I'm not complaining because it means I'm not bullied at school that much. I promise. Anyway, that's it. We'll see you on the next episode with what is the best characterization of the Batman.
That's the anime
Thanks for
series.
watching.